Hi everybody, I'm good to go and I hope you guys are too, because today we are finishing the story of Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise. And if you haven't checked out part 2 yet, check out right here! Do it! There you can get caught up on everything that you missed out on. But for all the cool cats that are here and are up to date, hi! How are you? I got a lovely video here for you today. So without any further ado, let's dive right into part 3. The issue starts with an all-out war, and Aang and Zuko are chilling on a hill. Zuko says that he thought he was doing the right thing for his people, but in the back of his mind, he thought he should have stayed with the movement plan. And then Zuko's dad says, "Make me proud, my boy." Zuko says he can't figure out what's right when all he can hear is his father. He says that Aang could have killed his dad and maybe he would have found some peace. Roku reminds Aang of the promise that they made when Zuko was sure what was right. Zuko then says he doesn't feel like he's ever going to stop feeling lost. And Roku and Zuko tell Aang to do it. And then Aang goes into the Avatar state and is about to mark him. We then see Zuko's mom crying behind Roku, and Zuko's like, "Don't cry!" Ah! And then Aang and Zuko both wake up in their beds. We then cut to Aang and Katara flying over Yudao, telling them to evacuate. Well, they didn't like that because they start attacking them. And they're not messing around because they're attacking with meteor hammers and throwing axes. Bro, what the heck? He saved the world! Why are you trying to kill him? Aang chases down the axe thrower and they land in an axe factory. Oh jeez. He's ducking and dodging all the axes and kicks an airball to trip the attacker. Katara catches up with them and it turns out the attacker was Sneer. Aang demands to know why he would do that, and then he hears a voice saying that they're not going to leave their home. Turns out that voice is coming from Corey, you know, the leader of the Yudao resistance. Aang tells her that she has no idea what's coming, and Katara's like, "Bro, did you switch sides?" Sneer says that he always hated the Fire Nation after what they did to his parents, but when everyone was in Ba Sing Se, he went to Yudao and he fell in love with a firebender. And Aang is completely gobsmacked. Sneer said he kept it a secret because his friends are racist and he's down with the Fire Nation. And so is everyone else in the room. And Aang's like, "So you're like really dating this girl? Way to go, bro. I love that for you." Why do you have to do him like that, bro? Sneer says that he only agreed to help because they were going to keep out both Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation intruders. Corey says, "Bring on the protesters!" And Aang tells her that the Earth King's army is on the way. Sneer's like, "What?" And Aang says that's what they've been trying to tell him, that they gotta get out of here. Sneer says that the resistance might stand a chance with the Avatar by their side, but he says that he has to stick with the movement plan. Katara says maybe we should hear them out. And this is when the Avatar Aang fan club, the Yudao chapter to be exact, shows up, and Aang is super excited to see them. Katara, not so much. Corey asks if they know them, and Katara's like, "We know their type." "Oh, we sure do." "I'm right there with you, sister." Aang says that this club is a lot different from the one that's in Ba Sing Se, and he's not wrong because they've only got one president. He also really appreciates the attention to detail that they put into their outfits. He even likes their painted arrows. The president says that it's not actually paint, it's real tattoo, and Aang does not like that at all. He says that the tattoos have to be earned by practicing airbending. They say that they mastered airbending-like techniques, but Aang isn't having it. Those tattoos are sacred and define how they see the world. His culture isn't some costume for some people to wear. And then he storms out. Dang, my boy's culture getting appropriated. Katara goes after him and asks him where he's going. He says he's trying to go to the town gates to reason with the army. It's time to separate the nation and restore harmony. We then cut to Zuko in his chambers, and he's having a conflict with himself. When the mayor's wife invited him to Yudao, he didn't just see the city, he saw their life. He saw that they were just normal people, and he knows that in his heart, he is right for protecting these people. There's only one thing that makes him doubt his decision, and it's him taking his father's advice. He's worried that these people will think that he's acting like his dad, even though his reasons are different. He then says that he knew that he wanted a quiet life after the war, and he doesn't want to disturb him. And we then see Zuko talking to a photo of the GOAT, Iroh, and he says that he misses him. Okay, from what it sounds like Iroh's still alive. And that is my only thing that was bumming me out because there's been zero Iroh in this story. We then see a guard come in, and he says that they've arrived at the shores of the Earth Kingdom, and Zuko prepares for battle. We then cut back to Aang, and he's chilling on the roof somewhere. We see Katara ice bend some stairs up to him, and she asks if there is any sign of the army, which there hasn't been. She asks him if he's okay, and he says that his head hurts. He says he thinks he understands why the nations have to be separated. He says that when two nations come together, the stronger one will always take advantage of the weaker one. Katara says Guru Patik that separation is just an illusion, and the nations are all one and the same. Aang says he doesn't want things to be the same. He doesn't want his culture to just disappear after he's gone. So Katara asks him what is he gonna do? Collect old rags like a hermit? And he says he doesn't know. He says he does know that his culture won't survive if nations keep invading each other. And that's why he needs to see the movement plan through. Even if it means Zuko has to die. Katara says that's against airbending philosophy. And he says, yeah, I know. That's why my head hurts. We then cut to Sokka, and Toph asks him what is he doing outside. He says that Aang and Katara should have picked him up by now. They're probably too busy macking on each other. Toph says, quit your complaining because they just got here. But that shadow isn't Appa. It's Suki, and she stole a Fire Nation blimp. They start macking on each other. Hypocrite. Turns out the warriors were surveying the area for Zuko. She said that some guy said a dirt girl and a snow savage took his school. Snow savage is crazy. Suki starts to leave and tells them to come with. When they start to leave, Toph students come out and say they want to come with. They start showing off their skills, but Toph says it's going to take a little bit more than that to impress her. Now get back to your forms. Suki apologizes for taking Toph away from her students, and she's like, no problem, cuz, we cool. We don't mind taking a break from the Dark One's poetry. Sokka asks her what this is all about, and she says, take a look for yourself. And they see the Fire Nation army marching towards Udao. We then cut back to Aang and Katara says that she has a confession to make. She says that she changed her mind on the movement plan, and Aang's like, oh really? I had no idea. Why? She asked if he remembered the first time they got to Udao. She saw Corey and her family, and they looked at them like their whole lives were in their hands. But she didn't only just see them. This is when Aang interrupts her and says this convo is gonna have to wait because the protesters have come to the gate with a battering ram. Aang goes down there to talk to Smelly, and she's like, did you get those dirty firebenders out of Udao yet? Aang asks for more time, and they're like, Nah! The Earthbenders tee up to hit not only Aang but the gate with the battering ram, but he dodges out of the way. They start rushing the gate, and Katara intervenes and disarms. They tee up the ram to hit the gate again, and Aang headbutts through the ram. Aang says that Toph would be proud. And Katara's like, bro, they're gonna get crushed! Then he airbends the rocks away, and they shoot at his girlfriend. Then the sharp part of the ram almost crushes Smellerbee, but Aang saves her. She thanks Aang and says that she kind of feels bad now for distracting him. He's like, what do you mean? And she asks if they thought they were dumb enough to bring a stone battering ram when the Avatar was gonna be here. They were just trying to bide some time so they wouldn't notice a drill that's like 6 feet away from the gate. We then cut back to Sokka and the ladies, and Suki was catching them up on what was going on. And she says she needs their help stopping Zuko's army before they get to the city. Sokka asks if they can really stop an army, and Suki said, well, we took out an air fleet, which is a good point. So they decide to rely on the funny idea guy. Step 1 of the plan is to get into one of the tanks unnoticed. So Toph makes an underground slide that's going to take them directly underneath the army. And then when a tank rolled over them, Toph grabs the bottom of the tank. The guard who's driving is like, bro, you busting ass? And then Toph forces her way into the tank. Sokka and Suki rush to the tank and they sneak in unnoticed. Toph is like, okay, what's part 2? And Sokka's like,
I don't know. I never thought I'd get this far.
Wow, I made a SpongeBob reference while wearing a SpongeBob shirt. Is that crazy? Toph's like, how can you not have a part 2? And Sokka's like, oh yeah, blame the idea guy. Which, honestly, yeah, I would. While they're trying to figure out what to do next, Suki says that she's going to try to get them closer to Zuko. When Toph asks why, Suki says that he just seems so lonely. Toph says he seems more screwy in the head. And that gives Sokka an idea. Step 2 of the plan is to have Toph metal bend the screws on the tanks. We then cut back to Aang and we see that the protesters' drill made it through the wall. And Jet's crew has an awkward encounter. Smellerbee and Corey start to fight and Aang begs them to stop fighting. Smellerbee starts to give Sneer grief for dating a firebender, but Longshot is like, wait, I'm proud of my boy. And Smellerbee's like, you know what, you're not wrong, because our boy's kind of ugly. Why? Why is everybody doing my guy like this? Sneer starts to explain that Udao could be a place that's neither Fire Nation nor Earth Kingdom, but somewhere that's both, or neither at all. And this is when Katara chimes in and says, this is what I've been trying to tell you, Aang. They can coexist. And then some rando hucks a boulder at them. Katara protects Corey and the Udao citizens go on the offensive, and an all-out brawl is about to start. This is until Aang intervenes and blows the protesters out the gate. He tells Smellerbee that he agrees with her, but the firebenders need to leave peacefully. Smellerbee says that might not be an option anymore because the Earth King's army is here. Monkey feathers! Avatar Aang! Double monkey feathers! That's right, the Avatar Aang fan club, the Udao chapter to be exact, is here, and they're here to apologize to Aang for cultural appropriation. Good move, guys. They ask how they can help, and Aang's like, go home, bro. Your services are not needed. And they're like, but we staying, bro. It's alright. The general then gets off his horse, and he says, hear ye, hear ye. Get the F out, bro. Katara sees the Earth Kingdom blimp and is like, why can't you give your own decrees? And he's like, General Hao seems like he's got it down, dude. The general says that all firebenders in Yudao are criminals and must leave at once. And the protesters cheer. And now Aang has to make a choice. Is he going to fight for Yudao or against it? We then get this cool 2-page spread of the battlefield that shows that the Fire Nation just showed up. The fan club tells Aang they're going to protect him, and Aang blows them away so we don't have to see these annoying characters for a while. Well, turns out this tank that's right in front of them was being driven by the other half of the gang. And Sokka's like, bro, you were supposed to pick me up. Katara's like, well, you seems like you hitched a ride with the Fire Nation. Then Toph questions why they're defending Yudao. Bro, what's going on? I don't know. The general comes down and is like, we could end this right now, but not with an army in the way. We have a saying in my council. An army without a leader is like a dragon without a head. So go kill that guy. Then they longingly look into each other's eyes, and Aang starts arguing with the general. Katara is like, if you slowed them down, how are they still here? He's like, keep your eyes on me. Then she slams on the ground and the tanks fall apart. Sokka's like, I still got it. And the general says, the dragon still has its head, but it lost its legs. And he launches a charge into Yudao. And Zuko tells his troops to defend the city. Well, this pisses off Aang and he flies over to Zuko and he's like, bro, why couldn't you have just stuck with the plan? It was so simple. This is when Katara slides in and grabs Aang. He says that he needs to remain calm so that he can make sure that he makes the right choice. He tells her that he's worried about the people getting killed, and Katara says, let me worry about that. She slides them both to the top of the gate, and she says that she never got to finish telling them about their first time visiting Yudao. When she saw Corey's family, she saw their future together. If the nations would be separated, what would that mean for them? She says she knows that it's selfish because she knows that the stakes are a lot bigger than them. She tells him to go somewhere quiet and figure out what he's going to do, and she'll go along with it, even if it means that they can't be together anymore. This is when Aang flies out to a secluded area and surrounds himself in stone. Then he calls on Daddy Roku for advice. But Roku is like, you gotta kill the guy, bro, I'm sorry. And Aang says that that's what he said in his dream last night. Aang says that lately, he realized how much he would love being an airman. And since he's the last one, it's hard for him to turn on his philosophies. Besides, his people's philosophies aren't the only things that he loves. Roku says that it's the Avatar's duty to balance the world. Then Roku says that it pains him to advocate for the death of his grandchild. Aang's like, what? And Roku says that Zuko's mom is his granddaughter. Aang's like, no way, dude. Roku says that he never told him because he wanted Aang to succeed where he failed and put the world above all else. Then he tells him to empty himself and to contemplate the world. We then get back to the battlefield where Sokka is getting caught up on the whole situation. After he's caught up, he's like, where did Aang go then? And Katara says that he needed somewhere to quiet to think things through. Toph says, what's there to think about? And Katara cuts her off and says that we need to trust him. And right now we need to focus on making sure that people don't kill each other. Kind of like Avatar Aang's fan club. Katara says that they need to split up. Toph and Sokka are going to disarm the Fire Nation soldiers, and Katara is going to work on the Earthbenders. Sokka says he's going to take care of the protesters, and he gets to go on the rock slide again, his favorite. We then cut to Smellerbee fighting Sneer, calling him a traitor. That is until Sokka comes sliding in. Sokka says, halt combatants, let the leaves depart from you, like a breaking wind. What? He says, I don't know, I heard that from the fan club. So, what's up? Why are you guys scrapping? Aren't you guys friends? Smellerbee says that they were until he started dating a firebender. Sokka's like, yo, what? Let me get this straight. You guys are dating? Nice, dude. We then cut to Suki and Toph when they're taking out Fire Nation soldiers, but Toph says that she needs a second to catch her breath. Suki says, I don't think we have a second because a Fire Nation army is charging at them. That is until their helmets get turned around on them. Turns out Toph's students showed up and they're kicking ass. Although much to Toph's annoyance. They say that they want to help fight to protect their home. And Panka wants to show off her helmet trick, but the fight isn't over yet because the troops start to get back up. We then cut back to Katara and she took out a bunch of troops. She then sees the Earth King's blimp again and she decides that she wants to try to talk to him. And when she gets up there, he says he wanted to prove himself to his men, that he can lead them, but now he wishes Bosco was here, and thinks he bit off more than he can chew. Katara asks him if he's ever been to Yudao, and he tells her that he's never been to the outer rings of his own city until a year ago. So she's like, why don't you go see the people that your decision is affecting? But he's like, it's not safe. And she's like, no, it's not. We then cut back to the battlefield and General Hao demands that they surrender. If they surrender now, they'll be treated fairly. Corey is like, never! And the Earth Kingdom soldiers begin to rush them. And that's until a giant wall of fire stops them. That fire, it came from our boy Zuko, and he's like, yo, General Hao, withdraw your troops. We then zoom out of the battlefield and over to Aang, and we see him shoot the classic Avatar Sky Beam, and everyone stops fighting to look at it. Aang launches from his secluded area and right up to Zuko. Zuko says, hey man, I know this looks bad, but oh my god, I'm doing exactly what my dad would do. and Aang earth bends the ground and Zuko falls into the crater. Aang then flies down there to save him. Turns out Aang made a crater all around the city so nobody can get in. He safely puts Zuko down, and I guess I'll say all the named characters showed up. Aang turns to the Earth King and he says, look at who you're fighting. Fire Nation, yes, but also Earth Kingdom, Water Tribe, and now Air Nomad. These are the people who fight against both armies. And it took him a while to realize this, but Aang says they're not fighting just the colony, but against a brand new world. The Earth King tells the protesters to quiet down because he says he needs to see the city for himself. Aang then turns to Zuko and he's like, bro, you good? He was like, I was right all along. Bet. And then he collapses. We then cut to later and Aang is meditating on a roof. He summons Roku and he says, I'm not like you, Roku. And Roku's like, you're literally me. Yeah, but you asked me to kill your grandson for the sake of the world. Aang asked Roku what exactly he wanted him to see when he told him to contemplate the world. Because when he did, all he could see was his friends, the Kyoshi warriors, the White Lotus, and even Zuko. He says he can't contemplate the world without thinking about the people he cares about. Roku says that leaving things the way that they are puts the world at risk, and Aang says it's a new kind of world. He then thanks Roku for all the advice he's given him over the years. He couldn't have been the avatar that he is now without him. But the world is different now, and he needs to figure this out on his own. And then he cuts off Roku. No more Roku! Isn't that sad? Well, I doubt it's going to be permanent, but... We then hear a voice calling to Aang, and it's the GOAT, Iroh. And I'm not gonna lie, this is objectively the best book because Iroh makes an appearance. He's not only in picture form, but also like in alive form. So best comic ever. Iroh says that Zuko's finally awake, and why don't you come down to talk to him? He then thanks Aang for bringing Zuko to him, and he says Zuko forgets that he does have a place with him. Zuko says he feels like he's been sleeping for a week, and Aang's like, no, just 4 days. The Earth King said that he's ready to have an actual conversation about the situation, and he's waiting for them in Yudao. But whatever happens, Yudao can't be a part of either the Fire Nation or the Earth Kingdom. It has to be something new, and that's why they have to meet. Then there's a small pause. Then they start talking about the dream that they had at the beginning of the comic, and Zuko asks if Aang killed him in his dream, and Aang says yes. Zuko says that when he was about to die in his dream, he finally felt some relief. He then said that he was wrong to ask Aang to kill him. He always struggled to know what was right from wrong, and he thought that when the war was over, that struggle would go away. But when he visited Ozai in prison, he learned that that struggle was just beginning. Then Aang asked if he felt relief when he thought he was going to die, and he says no, because he knew that Aang would save him. Aang says it's because he's a flawed avatar. He said after finding out that Zuko was Roku's great-grandson, he felt like Zuko was family to him, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't detach that bond that he felt. He's flawed, but he can accept that. Zuko says that the struggle isn't going to get easier for him. He then mentions that he saw his mom in his dream. Iroh comes in and he says that dreams can sometimes show the answers to people's problems, and sometimes it's just spicy food. Zuko says that maybe finding his mother will finally give him some peace. Zuko says when he became Fire Lord, he sent out search party after search party to try to find his mom, but they always came back empty-handed. How is he supposed to find her? Aang says it's a new world, so they should take new risks. Iroh's like, if you want to take a risk, why don't you try this new tea I invented? And he deadass made bubble tea. We then cut to Aang, and he's talking to his fan club. He tells them that he's nervous about sharing his culture with them, because he doesn't want it to be corrupted. But he also doesn't want his culture to die with him. And according to his friends, the fan club led a way to peace on the battlefield. And that's why he's going to teach them about his culture. But they will no longer be his fan club. Oh no. They will now be known as the Air Acolyte. We then cut to Zuko, and he's talking to someone saying that he feels disconnected from his family and his nation. And after trying to get the information from his father, he realized he was getting nowhere. So he asks the person in prison where his mother is, and we find out that this person was Azula. He asks her what she wants in return, and she says helping the Fire Lord is compensation enough. Besides, she always wondered what happened to her dear mother, and she sees her mother in the reflection again. And this is where the storyline ends. And I gotta say, it's pretty good. The subject matter is kind of cool. It's kind of like real, like weirdly real. The next storyline that I'm going to be doing is another Avatar one. It is The Search, the sequel one for this one that we just finished. So I'll be working on that, but you gotta give me some time because these books take a lot longer than you would realize just because the pages are like, there's like 76 pages per book. So it takes a lot longer to edit than you would think. But it's coming soon, I promise. But if you guys like what you saw, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to tell me what you want me to cover in the comments down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. And make sure you tell your family that you love them. Bye-bye now.